across America, I've been hearing these reports for years of these giant spiders that are sometimes the size of dogs. Now, a lot of the reports come from the Appalachia, Pacific Northwest, and the South. The first sighting actually goes back to 1948 when a family in Leesville, Louisiana, happened to be walking to church one Sunday when they see this very large spider walk across the road into the woods. And they described it as being as large as a washtub. Now, in 2005, there were all of these reports coming from Fort Polk in Louisiana that these soldiers were encountering these spiders that were sometimes larger than a hubcap. And the first story that I actually heard was this soldier who apparently his unit was on some sort of training exercise and they were testing out night vision goggles when they spot this very large spider. They said it looked sort of like a tarantula, and this thing reared up at them. The next report comes in 2009 when there's another soldier who said during another training exercise they were camping, and in the middle of the night he sees at the foot of his tent what looks like a man with a very long beard. Except as he looks closer, he realizes this is the foot of some sort of large looking creature. And this thing just backs out and takes off into the woods. Now, the latest encounter with these giant spiders comes from the Appalachia. There was this woman who said in 2022 she was looking for a place to start an art studio. She found this home right in a very secluded wooded area and she purchases it. Well, she said as she moved in and she started to fix this place up, she noticed that it was just completely quiet outside. There was never any insects, any squirrels, any birds, any deer. It was just void of wildlife. The other thing she notices are these very large holes in the ground, the size of basketballs. Well, she said one night she's laying in bed and she hears what sounds like something scurrying in the attic. And whatever this was very large. And she said it just was moving back and forth, back and forth. And then it eventually turned into a scratching sound in her bedroom. Well, for months, this went on, like every night. And then she said one night she was walking through the hallway and she discovered something hanging from the vent, which she described as this large pipe cleaner. She touched it and this thing receded back into the attic. And she said, all this weird stuff would happen where she thought, it could be an animal or maybe it's like, my house is haunted. But then one day her dog goes missing and she searches and she can't find this dog until one day she's walking through the woods and she discovers all of this spider webbing. And she said, it must have been up to like 12, 15 foot high. And within that webbing, she finds her dog. And it all clicked to her. Wait a second. She was like, that sound that I was hearing in the attic, I think that was like a very large spider, and it was trying to claw and dig into the ceiling to get to me.
Now, this happened to me many years ago. I had just got done doing a paranormal investigation, and, I was a little tired, but I decided I was going to go to the bar and have a few drinks. So I go to my favorite local bar, and I sit down. I'm there by myself, and I'm having a couple drinks, and I leave. Well, I knew a couple people that worked at the bar, and they reach out to me after I leave, and they're like, hey, we want to tell you something really weird. Like, who is that guy that was with you? And I'm like, what do you mean, what guy? I was alone. They said, well, there was a guy sitting next to you, and he was walking around following you, and he followed you in the bathroom and everything. And they said, he seemed pretty creepy, like, looking. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, I literally was sitting in this chair, and next to me there were empty chairs, and like I went into the bathroom completely alone. So later that night they go over the like security footage and they see me sitting at the bar, but nowhere in this footage do they see this other guy that they had all witnessed when I was in there. And and then here's the eerie part about it is that I asked him, what did this guy look like? And they said, he was this taller gentleman with a mustache. He looked like he was wearing, 1940s style clothes. And earlier that night when I had done the paranormal investigation, one of the claims was that people in the basement would see this man, mustache, taller, 1940s looking suit. And they described exactly this guy at the paranormal investigation I had done. And another time that I had had a similar encounter like that, I was a teenager and I couldn't sleep one night, so I decided I was going to walk to Walgreens and get some food. Well, you know, in my town, it's pretty common for people to walk at night, and you'll often see people walking because it's just like, it was a really safe area at the time. So, you know, I get to Walgreens and I get all this stuff, and I'm walking back home when I'm on just sort of this main street that cuts through town, when I notice this guy, you know, is following behind me. And I wasn't alarmed at this time because, like I said, a lot of people walk at night here in this town. So anyways, I just ignore him and I keep walking. When I turn off onto this side street, I notice he turned. And then I turn onto another side street, he turns. And a third time, right, I turn onto this next side street, he follows. And once he did that, I'm thinking in my mind, like, I know what's about to go down. I want to try and get home as fast as possible, but I may have to, you know, stand my ground. This guy is now within like 15 yards of me. He's really close. When all of a sudden he lets out this scream like I had never heard before. And I turn around, he's running in the opposite direction. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what was that all about? Well, there's a guy that happened to be sitting on his porch and he's like, hey man, come here, you all right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I seen that dude following you, but your friend scared him away. And I'm like, friend? And he's like, yeah, the guy that was dressed kind of like a Native American. Like he, you know, stuck his hand out at the guy and the, you know, guy got scared. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wait, you know, I'm completely alone. Who is he talking about? And so fast forward a couple years after this, I was having a conversation with this lady who, you know, had claimed to be a psychic. And she says, you have a spirit guide. I said, what? She goes, you have a spirit guide. It's a Native American man. She described him. And she described what this guy had told me, the friend that was with me that night. And from that day forward, like, I always felt like maybe I had this spirit guide who followed me around.
What do you guys think about reincarnation? There are so many great stories out there where children will express what they remembered from past lives, and I'm here for it. Creepy story time. So this woman tells a story of when her son was about 2 years old and they were camping by a lake. He put on his dad's straw hat, grabbed a piece of driftwood, and began stalking his sister in the woods. He would duck around trees and peer out holding this piece of driftwood like it was a pew-pew. Now she claims that they were a no weapons household. Like he never even would have seen a weapon or a pew-pew even in a book. She said they were a little freaked out by that, but then they brushed it off, and not even a couple months later, he started speaking in full sentences like an adult. He would also sit in her lap and hold her face and look up into